January 27th, 2022 meeting of the Mashpee Conservation Commission. If there is anyone in the audience or in the virtual audience that has any business that is not on the agenda, I'd ask that you come forward now.
Nope.
Nobody's calling in for public comment aside from the agenda.
Very good. Drew, if we could move to the pre and post hearing items.
Sure. So the first item up is the approval of 3 sets of meeting minutes starting with October 28th, 2021. And those in attendance who are voting on these minutes would be Chad Smith, Brad Sweet, Tom O'Neill, Paul Colombo, and Brian Whedon.
I would move to approve the minutes of 10/28/2021 of the Mashpee Conservation Commission.
Do I hear a second? Thank you. Now voting. Brad.
Yes.
Paul. Yes. Brian.
Yes.
Tom. Aye. I vote aye as well. Motion carries.
Great, thank you. Next set of meeting minutes is from December 9th, 2021. And I believe we have a full quorum for that meeting, so it's everybody.
All right, we'll entertain a motion.
I would move to approve the minutes of December 9th of the Mashpee Conservation Commission.
Thank you, Brad. Do we hear a second? Thank you. Second. Voting. Charlie. Yes. Brad.
Yes.
Alex.
Yes.
Paul. Yes. Brian.
Yes.
Tom. Aye. Vote aye as well. Motion carries.
Thank you. And our last set of meeting minutes is from January 6th, 2022. And those present at that meeting are Tom O'Neill, Paul Colombo, Brad Sweet, Alex Olo, and Brian Whedon.
Entertain a motion.
I would move to approve the minutes of January 6, 2022 of the Mashpee Conservation Commission.
Thank you, Brad. Do I hear a second? Second. Thank you. Now voting. Brad.
Yes.
Alex.
Yes.
Paul. Yes. Brian.
Yes.
Tom. Aye. Motion carries.
All right. We can move on to the first hearing, and I'll invite the applicant in Raul Lizardi from Cape and Islands Engineering. Just give me a moment here.
And Caroline Goodman, too. She's the owner.
Caroline Goodman, the owner. Okay, Chad, you can call the first hearing when you're ready.
Thank you, Drew. Now calling the 6 o'clock hearing for Caroline R. Goodman, trustee, 53 Godfrey Road. This is a proposed expansion and replacement of an existing pier. Representative tonight is from Cape and Islands Engineering. This is an NOI.
Good evening. For the record, Raul Lizardi from Cape and Islands Engineering, representing the applicant, Caroline Goodman. And I believe Caroline and Howard Goodman are both joining by phone for this hearing. But yes, this project is for modifications to an existing and licensed pier at 53 Godfrey. Right now, what exists on the property is a fixed pier. Actually, before the fixed pier, it's actually a set of stairs down the bank. And there's a fixed pier leading to an existing ramp and a float. The float is held in place with just 2 piles. So there are no flow stops and no adequate water depth at this location. No. Right in front of the float, there's approximately half a foot to probably 7 inches of water during low tides. The current homeowner have a 13-foot Boston whaler, and it draws about 9 inches of water. So during a low tide period, they can actually not use their boat at all because the boat is just grounded in the muck for Mashpee River. Talking about Mashpee River, the resources here are land under the ocean, riverfront area, coastal bank, coastal beach. There's also a salt marsh and land containing shellfish. What the homeowner wants to do is reconfigure the existing licensed pier by reaching deeper water so that the boat problem with grounding is no longer a problem. The homeowner also has 3 kayaks, and they also want to increase the size of the float so that they can properly and easily use the kayaks on the float. In addition, they want to acquire another boat, which will be either a 23 or 24-foot boat. For this reason, they're going for a new float that is 10 feet by, I believe the size is 24 feet. So it's approximately 240 square feet of float area that they're proposing to have. With this one, they can actually dock the intended new boat on the water side and the Boston Whaler on one of the 2 wings. And then the other wing can be used for the kayaks to launch kayaks in and out. The good thing about this new location is that it reaches waters of over a foot of water at low tide. We sent this plan over to the harbor master, and he had no problems with the location in terms of navigation, but he did make comment that there are 2 nearby moorings, one to the northwest and one to the east, that should these 2 moorings need to be relocated, it will be done at the expense of this applicant, and the applicant understands that. We also sent it, actually, as part of the submission to the commission, it was submitted to the Shellfish Constable, and the Shellfish Constable did respond saying that although there is no good shellfishing in Mashpee River, there is the potential for habitat, so he recommended mitigation for this proposed pier modifications. The applicant saw the recommendations from the Shellfish Constable and agrees to the fee, I believe, or the fund of approximately $2,200 for this project, and they have no problems with actually doing that. So the 2 main reasons for this project modification is to obtain adequate water depth and also to allow for that larger float to have the 2 boats and the kayaks on a property. If there's any questions, I'll be happy to answer.
Thank you, Raul. Drew, comments?
You all have my comments just regarding, wanting an explanation for the larger float size, which Raul did provide. And as already stated, the Shellfish Constable feels that this is a good candidate for the Shellfish Mitigation Fee, which he did calculate out based on the expanded footprint, proposed expanded footprint. We know, I don't know, I'm sorry if you mentioned this already, Raul, but we know the draft of the larger boat.
It's right here, 14 or 11 inches, depending on
14 or 11 inches.
depending on what they get.
Right. The homeowner provided that information via, I believe, an email a couple of days ago.
Yeah.
So, yeah, depending on the outcome of this hearing, they're looking into 2 models. And the 23 has, I believe, an 11-inch draft. The 24, I think, like Caitlin said, it was 14. I'm not completely sure. I don't have the email in front of me right now.
Yep. And currently.
Yeah, 9 inches for the current boat. So,
Mashpee Conservation Commission.
so based on the regulations 27, docks, piers, and floats, the proposal does meet the performance standards. And if the commission agrees with the Shellfish Constable's comments, to be conditioned as part of this project as a shellfish mitigation fee for the proposed expanded footprint, then we recommend to close an issue.
Questions from the commissioners?
So do I understand correctly that the shellfish mitigation does meet the standards as proposed?
Well, the shellfish mitigation is really determined by calculating out the area of impact from what's being proposed. So, the standards of the Shellfish Mitigation Fee are just the calculations themselves. And in the regulation, it offers, the regulation provides the commission with, to assess these projects with that type of mitigation in mind, or if the commission feels that upland mitigation would be more suitable in lieu of a shellfish fee. So it's your discretion as far as what type of mitigation you feel is appropriate for this type of project. And the Shellfish Constable, we rely on him for these types of situations to see if, this is a suitable type of project where a shellfish mitigation fee would be the preferred form of mitigation.
Thank you.
Other commissioners?
I have a question. I'm looking at the plan, and correct, I might be wrong. Is it 6 new piers and an additional 2 to be relocated?
Yes, it's 6 new piles. Yep.
The piles, yeah.
Yes.
I'm sorry, piles.
Yeah.
Yes.
So there's 6 new ones in total, and then 2 have to be moved.
Yes.
Which 2 are being moved? I'm not clear on that.
So currently there are 2 flow piles. Those are the ones that are holding the existing flow. Those
Right.
2 will be repurposed, and then there's 4 for the new flow, and those 4 are so that we can also provide flow stops, so that in case of extreme low tides, the flow does not ground like currently happens on the site.
Right.
So that's 4 for the float and 4 for the pier extension, but 2 of the pier extension are being repurposed from the existing flow.
Okay, and where's the location of the 2 moorings that have to be moved?
So on the plan, well, the relocation of them will have to be in coordination with the harbor master. So once this project gets moving forward, the harbor master will be the one that determines where they will be moved to, and the expenses of that relocation will fall under this application, under this applicant.
Okay.
Other questions? Is there anyone in the audience that would like to make comment?
Hi there. The chairman has called for comment, so please state your name for the record and state your comment.
Okay, you want me to do that now?
Yes, can everybody hear him?
Not particularly.
Okay, state your name for the record.
My name is Alfred Houston. I'm a butter to their property, and my dock is next to their dock. And
Okay, and what's your comment?
I have a couple questions. One, as it is now, the 2 moorings, or at least one of those moorings, makes it, it works fine for me to get to my dock, but if it's moved closer to my dock, I will have trouble getting to my dock. And I guess you're just saying that that's not going to be decided now. This dock will be approved, and then they'll figure out the moorings later?
Yes.
Yes, that will be figured out through the harbor master.
Okay. Why isn't it being decided now so that we know what the impact on my dock is going to be?
Drew, I could probably
Go ahead, Rob.
add something to that.
Sure.
So the relocation of those moorings will be in coordination with the harbor master, and of course, the new location cannot interfere with any other existing piers on this neighborhood. Right now, this location for I would say the northwestern mooring, we are at 59 feet, the proposed float, 59 feet from that mooring, the way we located it at this time. Now, these moorings sometimes get reset, so sometimes they get reset at different locations. But at this particular location, that's where it was. The eastern one is, I believe, a little closer. It's a 50-60, which is roughly about the same distances, actually 69, so it's a little further. So it's about the same distances that those moorings are located today to those other two neighboring floats. So it's not getting drastically closer to those moorings, but if the harbor master does determine that they're too close, the relocation will have to be done so that it does not interfere with any other pier or floats on the neighborhood.
Did you hear that
Thank you,
response?
Raul. I can't hear if the individual calling in has further commentary or not.
Is there any regulation on the size of the floats?
Yeah, so float sizes are at they're assessed between the Conservation Commission, the Shellfish Constable, and the Harbor Master to see how they may impact each one's jurisdiction. And so it's a consensus among those three to determine what the size is being proposed and what, if any, impacts that may be causing or mitigation measures that could be conditioned to allow the float size to be approved. So that's essentially how the float sizes are assessed. Ask him if he got that.
Did you get that, sir?
Well, do they all meet as a group to assess the size, or how do they do that?
So the plans are sent to both the Harbor Master and the Shellfish Constable and the Commission well in advance of the hearing. And then the Shellfish Constable and Harbor Master submit their comments prior to this hearing where it's presented to the Commission. So by that methodology, everyone has plenty of time to review and comment in time for the hearing. There's a little time delay, that's why we're waiting.
Have they submitted something, and have they approved it?
Yeah, yes, it was already, the consultant had gone through, but we'll reiterate. So the Shellfish Constable is recommending a shellfish mitigation fee, which is a calculated formula that he uses that is based on the amount of impact to land containing shellfish from pile installation and float size. And then the Harbor Master submitted his comments in regard to the moving of the existing moorings in order to accommodate the new float location. And in doing so, he will, part of that assessment is to make sure that wherever the moorings are going to be moved, he hasn't decided yet, so that that isn't going to be determined at this hearing, but it will be determined by the Harbor Master so as to not impact any other neighboring docks. That's his purview, is to make sure that navigation in general for all these types of water-dependent projects do not result in any sort of issues with neighboring docks.
Thank you.
Sure.
All right, have a good night.
Other questions, statements, comments from the general public or fellow commissioners?
Doesn't seem like it. Chad?
All right, well, then in that case, we'll entertain a motion. There has been discussion of a condition to this motion, so keep that in mind when making it.
Real quick, Chad, just have a couple comments to read into for the record, please. Just take me one moment. Yep. Board of Health comments that that the contractor should note the location of the septic system and restrict equipment, vehicle traffic over non-load bearing H-tank components. And actually, that's all I had. Sorry. Thank you.
Other questions? questions or comments? Hearing none, we'll entertain a motion.
I would move that we close an issue in regards to the application of Caroline R. Goodman, trustee at 53 Godfrey Road.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Brad. Thank you, Charlie. Any other further discussion? Voting. Charlie.
Yes.
Brad.
Yes.
Alex.
Yes.
Paul.
No.
Brian.
Yes.
Tom. Aye. I vote aye as well. Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, we're going to move on to the next hearing. I'm just going to invite in the applicant. And it's you, Raul, right? Still you for this one? Yeah. Chad, whenever you're ready, you can call this hearing for 14 Menemsha.
Thank you, Drew. Now calling to order the 603 hearing, Silva Development, LLC, 14 Menemsha Road. Proposed demolition and reconstruction of single-family dwelling, the associated landscape and hardscaping. Representatives from Cape and Islands Engineering. This is an RDA.
Good evening. For the record, Raul Lizardi from Cape and Islands Engineering, representing Silva Development, LLC, for the proposed project at 14 Menemsha Road. The only resource on the property or within 100 feet of it is land subject to coastal stone flowage. This lot is a landlocked lot, approximately 8,000 square feet of land area, and about 1/4 of it, the eastern quarter of it, is in the flood zone. Flood zone is elevation 12. The applicant is looking to completely raise the existing dwelling and construct a new dwelling. There'll be no increase in bedrooms, so the septic system will remain the same. One of the existing trees in the floodplain is proposed to be removed. That's in order to be able to construct the foundation for this house. In replacement for that one tree that's being removed, there are 5 proposed American holly trees along the back property line, occupying a space of about 32 feet along that property line. All 5 of them are located in the flood zone, so we're eliminating the 1 from the flood zone and proposing 5 in the flood zone. There's other improvements to the property in terms of landscaping and hardscaping, but most of it falls outside of the flood zone area. The only proposed portion of the work that falls in the flood zone area is the removal of the tree, a portion of the new house, and the demolition of the portion of the existing house, and then the regrading and landscaping around the proposed project. All of the roof downspouts are proposed to be captured and infiltrated using floor drywall, as shown on the plan, which is typical for house projects or dwelling projects in Mashpee regulations or Mashpee conservation jurisdiction. If there's any questions, I'll be happy to answer.
Want to give comments to this
Thank you, Raul. Drew, comments?
one? Caitlin's going to have some comments for you.
Sure. Thank you, Raul. So this project does meet the Regulation 25 performance standards for a flood zone. Just had a couple questions for you, generally about the plan, Raul. The plan states that no structure will be in the flood zone, although it appears the northeast east corner of the new dwelling will be in the flood zone. Is that correct, or did I read that wrong?
So the existing house is in the flood zone. The proposed house, there's a corner that falls within the current flood zone. What this project is intending to do is to regrade that corner above the floodplain. So this will have to be followed by a LOMA for proposed raising the grade to have the construction of the house above the floodplain.
Okay,
So
okay. Oh, thank you for that clarification.
Yes, if there's no changes to the grade, then it will completely fall in it. But with the proposed raise in the grade, it will be out.
Okay, and also for the driveway, too, that it's planned to be paved, but again, that would technically be, would that technically be out of the flood zone? It doesn't look like it with the new grade change, right? That would still be in the flood zone?
Right, the driveway that's in the flood zone, that's the existing driveway that is to remain.
Okay. All right, and looks like you're planting the 5 American holly trees, and those, again, won't necessarily be directly in the flood zone after the grading changes are made, correct?
Actually, that is not the case. They will still be in the flood zone.
Oh, they still will be, okay. Okay, yep, all right.
They will be between elevations of 10 and 12, and 12 is the floodplain, so they will completely be in the floodplain. Those 2 trees, existing trees that are in the backyard, on the back right corner, they will remain, and they are in the floodplain.
Oh, very good, okay. And overall, we do recommend that the area of the property slated for the lawn area should be conformed to our lawn standards.
Yes, we agree to that.
Okay, thank you for that clarification, Raul, I appreciate it. I just have a couple comments to read in for record from Board of Health. The new septic system is not proposed. Property is in a zone 2 and restricted to the existing 3 bedrooms. Floor plans submitted to building department showed 3 bedrooms on second floor and his/hers office in the basement that meets the definition of a bedroom under Title V. To eliminate privacy, 4-foot cased openings on both offices must be redesigned to 6-foot cased openings. Road and asbestos inspections were completed. And the building department states that this is determined to be a by right project, no ZBA relief required. Thank you.
Thank you, Caitlin. Questions and comments from the commissioners?
I would ask Raul in regards to the seeding of the new grasses in the property. There's going to be an awful lot of disturbed area there, and I'm wondering, is it the plan, or I guess I'm asking, shouldn't it be the plan that the entire lot is overseeded with our standard seed?
I have seen other projects that they have, once they have that condition that anything in the flood zone has to be seeded with this particular mixture, they go ahead and seed the entire thing, because it kind of makes it more difficult to seed 2 different areas. So I believe that would be acceptable for the homeowner. It would just be one type of seed mix to spread throughout. Makes it easier.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions from the commissioners? If there are none, and if there are any in the audience that have called in who'd like to speak.
Yes, we do have an abutter who's called in, and I'm going to put him on speaker.
Thank you, Joe.
Paul, can you hear us?
I can, Drew. Can you hear me?
We can. Yeah.
I can. Hi, this is Paul Thurston and Katie Thurston. We own the property directly adjacent at 18 Menemsha Road. We're currently under construction. Our concern, for which we met with the applicant on Saturday, is just the grading on our right-hand common property line. We just want to ensure that if the lot is being raised, they do not fill our land at all in any way with any additional fill. We're in the flood zone ourselves. We have flood vents at elevation 10, and we're afraid their water may come off onto our property and into our flood vents and into our house.
Raul, did you catch that?
Yeah, I believe I understood. So he's the abutter to the right, if I understood correctly. And he's correct. His property is actually lower.
Sorry about that. Hold on one second. Okay.
Yes, his property is actually lower than this subject property. And there is an existing wall on his side of the property that is practically installed at elevations 9.5, and the wall probably stands about, I want to say 18 inches, 2 feet tall. Currently, that wall falls in kind of like a swale. It's kind of like a hole at this point. Contour elevation 10 and 11 kind of wrap around, creating that kind of depression. And then contour 12, which is the floodplain, goes all the way through the street and through the back properties, adjacent neighborhoods. So that existing depression actually will continue to be a depression because we cannot propose filling onto the neighbors. So we have to protect those elevations of 9.5 along the property line. So we cannot make that depression disappear altogether. But what we are proposing to do is collect all the runoff from the roof, which is the one that, in this particular case, sloping towards that side. Any roof runoff that doesn't get captured would eventually end up in this depression. So what we're proposing to do is do those dry wells to collect all that runoff. The runoff from the driveways themselves, they actually flow towards the street. So that would not be a problem for that case. But the idea of eliminating the low area, that's actually not doable unless the two neighbors agree to work together and raise those grades along the property line, which in this particular plan that we're proposing and we're asking permission for, we're not calling for that to take place. And that's not unusual. I mean, we cannot propose grades beyond our property limits, and we cannot completely change the full topography of the landscape. Right now, all this landscape is sloping from west to east, and that's because the shoreline is to the east. So in general, after all these improvements are done, that general topography will still remain, slightly different elevations, but it will still remain. It's just that we're capturing the runoff from the structure, which is the most critical one.
Paul, did you get it?
Paul Thurston, Paul Thurston just speaking. Yes, I get that we're capturing per code the roof runoff. Again, our feelings is I know we're not supposed to increase any water flow, but we're afraid with the topography of a paved driveway, and if it gets pitched towards our property, it will come into 10 and ultimately into the elevation. So we're actually eliminating some infiltration area at this time, and we just wanted to see if there was some way the applicants can work with a hedgerow or something to try to soften the water as it comes off grass into our property.
The only thing I can say to that is we typically don't propose drainage for the grass yards, for the side yards, or installing a drainage all along the property line will capture runoff from the yard, but usually capturing runoff of the lawn areas or the landscape areas is not something that's typically done. I know the existing retaining wall, in some way, is kind of working as a buffer for runoff because that retaining wall is actually at the lowest point. In the future, I guess I could bring up to my client, the homeowner, that there is this concern from the abutter of runoff, and maybe they can work together to build a little bit of an earth berm along the property line, which is slightly changing the grade, but it will somewhat prevent runoff from going from one property to the other. But the low depression will still remain. It will just be kind of like a vertical earth berm that prevents some water from continuing to run onto the neighbor's property. The only one elevation we have on that neighboring property is an elevation of 10.3, and that's approximately half a foot to some 7-8 inches higher than the lowest point on the property for this project, which is 9.6, 9.5. But if the two property owners work together, they could probably build sort of like a continuation from that retaining wall towards the street in form of an earth berm, a foot high should be enough to get those 9 nines to become 11, and that should be probably enough for them.
Absolutely, and we would appreciate that cooperation. We'd like to see not only an earth berm, but perhaps a gravel drainage swale to, again, break that water that would be sheet flowing off any lawns into our property. But we will work with the neighbor and yourselves from Cape and Island Engineering. We support the project. We just wanted to make sure there's no adverse effects as the construction goes forward.
Good. Yeah, I can mention that to the homeowners, and I don't think that will be a problem with this project moving forward as being proposed, because that's just a little slight change in grade.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you, Paul. Okay. And just to show the commissioners some photos of the site, this is 18 Menemsha looking top left from the road. Existing backyard, you can see there's spray painted trees tagged to be removed in the backyard. This is outside the flood zone in this area here. Another shot back, bottom left here, looking at the backyard, and this area of the yard back here, that's the part that's in the flood zone. So you've got a mix of landscape lawn and some scattered trees making up the vegetation on the lot. And then this is a shot of the area of the flood zone neighboring property on the seaward side of the house. So there is also a letter that was that we received today from. 1 second to get my information correct here. So it's a letter from a woman who's not a direct abutter to the property. I think she was part of the ownership of the house at 18 Menemsha, and I'm not going to read her comments into the record specifically because they really all pertain to matters that are not of the commission's purview, things to do with previous ownership of the house at 18 Menemsha, and just general ownership questions. So they're not really germane to the commission's purview at all. None of the comments are related to any sort of impact to wetlands. But I did want to at least bring it into the record as something that we acknowledge receipt of, but realize that it's not relevant to these proceedings. So no other comments.
Thank you, Drew. Other comments from the public or the commissioners?
Chad, I've got a question. Are both of these driveways proposed to be paved, or just the one that says paved driveway?
The new one is pervious, but the old one is paved. What I see on the plan.
Okay, so looking at the plan, the driveway that's on the right, the left-hand side, is pervious.
No, from what if I'm correct in trying to read this, that the new one, which is the one on the left, is the one that is impervious. So that meets current standard. The other one is a existing condition, paved and draining onto the street.
Right, the one on the right, which is in the floodplain in conservation jurisdiction, that one that Drew is hovering over, that's the existing one, and it is paved. It is a bituminous pavement driveway that's not proposed to change.
But yet it's potentially creating a drainage issue, which drains one or two house lots away into Dean's Pond.
The driveway is not creating a drainage issue. The driveway already has the drainage that it has, so it's not being proposed to change. So it's not. It's not being. If it was proposed, then yes, it will be the potential of creating a problem downstream or downslope. But as an existing driveway, it won't create because it's already there.
But yet we're asking this particular, the person that is filing is Silver Development. They are creating a drainage problem on the right side of the lot at 14 Menemsha. It was discussed earlier about cooperation between the two property owners to make sure that it is not draining from left to right.
Right. So what's happening, from what I understood from the neighbor, is that the current development, as it stands, is causing a problem because there is a low depression, mostly on the neighbor's side, that is collecting water, and that particular situation would not change because that depression is mostly at the property line, and we're not raising the entire property line. However, we are improving the conditions in the form that we are collecting all of the roof runoff with dry wells. I do understand that there is some runoff from lawn areas, but comparing the runoff from lawn areas and the runoff from a roof, impervious surface, the roof is the greater runoff producer. And in this case, we're collecting all four corners with dry wells. So the roof runoff would not be adding runoff to that low depression. And I will forward the information to my client so that they can agree to adding an earth berm so that even a 1 foot high earth berm along this property line will minimize any flooding that goes on to the neighbor from this side.
Well, the thing that gets me is that it seems like we're allowing them to put in a berm. I think we need to say they must put a berm in there to keep the water onto their property. I thought a basic principle of how you do land management in the town of Mashpee is you retain any runoff on your property. End of discussion.
Yeah, I think this project, because that's part of the floodplain area, you can condition that that berm be installed along that property line towards the street line, and that will be acceptable. Yes.
Drew, you have any comment about that?
I would just, if that's what you would like to have as a condition, I would make that part of the motion.
Yep, I understand that.
Yeah.
Other questions and comments from the commissioners or from anyone in the public?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi. My name is Leo Da Silva. So we bought the property under my company name, Silva Development. And I just wanted to say that I talked to Paul, the neighbor to the right, about doing something in there that would resolve that issue. We talk about that, like you say, on Saturday when I visit the property. And also, I'm hoping for the driveway on the right, if we can remove the pavement and put some type of, seashell or something in there that will be a better fit for that area for helping with the runoff in there.
A pervious surface.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good.
That should address it.
Well, if there's any other questions or comments, we'll hear them now. Otherwise, I see Mr. Sweet preparing for a motion.
Wait a minute. we got a full house here tonight, and wait on me. If hearing no further discussion, I would move that we have a negative determination in regards to the application of Silver Development LLC at 14 Menemsha Road. In the following conditions: that any of the disturbed earth a la lawn will conform with our lawn standards, and that there will be some changes to the plan so that on the right side. I can't see what the direction is, but that it will be modified so that there will be no runoff onto the adjoining property, and that the driveway, the new driveway on the left side of the property will be pervious, and the old driveway on the right of the property will be modified to be a pervious surface.
And then Drew will let you in to the meeting.
Thank you, Brad. Do I hear a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Charlie. Is there any further discussion amongst the commissioners? Hearing none, I'll call a vote. Charlie?
Yes.
Brad?
Yes.
Alex?
Yes.
Paul?
Yes.
Brian?
Yeah.
Tom?
Aye.
I vote aye as well. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we're gonna invite in the next applicant for 3 Greatfield Landing. Just give me a moment here. Let's see.
Were they there before?
Let's see, Keith Casile. Is anyone on the line who's representing the Flat Pond Homeowners Association 3 Greatfield Landing?
Yes, this is Keith Gazelle. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, Keith. Have you logged into Zoom?
I tried, but it didn't seem to let me in.
Okay. Well, we can just, we'll call the hearing, and I've got slides up and your whole presentation up on PowerPoint, so you can just cue me through audio as we go through, but the chairman will call the hearing to order.
Okay.
Now calling the 606 hearing, Flat Pond Homeowners Association, 3 Greatfield Landing, New Seabury Dunes Golf Course. Proposed treatment and eradication of aquatic invasive species. Representatives, Solitude Lake Management, continued from 12/9 and 1/6 for DEP number. This is an NOI.
Thank you. Again, for the record, my name is Keith Gazelle with Solitude Lake Management, representing the applicant, the Flat Pond Homeowners Association. Essentially, the proposed project, as you stated, is a Phragmites control program. There is an existing pond that was really created as a feature of the golf course that is about 1/4 of an acre in size. It has, over the years, developed an invasive Phragmites infestation that really rings much of the perimeter of the pond, probably ranging in width from about 10 to 15 feet wide. It has been mapped at about a total of 4,300 square feet of infestation. So essentially what we've proposed is a foliar application of an aquatic herbicide called ClearCast, actively and we've proposed kind of low volume application techniques that would consist of low volume foliar with a backpack sprayer, cut stem application, and some hand wiping as well. We're proposing treatment once the plant reaches full inflorescence, and when it starts to flower, which is typically kind of late August, September timeframe. Really, the window is probably late August through early October. Following treatment, we propose to cut and coarsely mulch the dead combs of the Phragmites and kind of leave them in place, really to remove the barrier that would impede kind of natural seed germination of dormant native seeds that are kind of currently present. And this program would likely require multiple applications, but it would be a single application per growing season. But we expect probably 2 to 3 applications in order to achieve kind of a sustainable level of control. That's pretty much the project. Certainly can answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you very much. Drew, comments?
I just had one comment, just in regards to one of the application methodologies, which is the backpack spraying. Keith, do you feel confident that by using that methodology, any native vegetation in areas where you may have intermingling of frag and native species won't be impacted by that methodology? I know it's kind of, it's mostly frag around, as you can see from the photos, but there are some native plants in the area, so I just wanted to get reassurance, with that methodology that it is going to be restricted using the sprayers to just the frag, and there wouldn't be any collateral damage, so to speak.
Yeah, certainly we use that technique often, and certainly have used it in conjunction or where there are mixed plant assemblages, even in some cases where there are rare species present.
Okay.
So yes, pretty confident that we can maintain kind of direct application to the target species, and typically how we do that is we're usually applying the product from an elevated position. So we actually will oftentimes bring small stepple headers out to the site so that we're applying the product to the canopy of the Phragmites growth. And given the density of the growth, it's unlikely and very typically does not happen that any sort of droplets will kind of filter through that vegetation to any plants that may be present kind of under the understory.
Sure. And I would imagine weather would play a part too, and when you go in to do this non-windy days.
Correct. Yeah, I think the product label prohibits application when wind speeds are greater than 10 miles an hour.
Okay, great. And then from what I read from the description, subsequent to the initial treatment, you go in and do spot treatment, and is that more towards the methodology of the cut stem swab method, like in subsequent treatments? Yeah, okay.
Yeah. I think even in year one, there'll probably be a combination of application techniques based on density of the Phragmites growth.
Sure.
And the prevalence of any other native species.
Okay, great. No other comments from me. Kate, do you have anything to add?
Nope.
Okay. No other comments. This is filed as what's called a limited ecological restoration project through DEP. And these types of projects, involve treatment and eradication of invasive species. So we certainly view this as a net environmental benefit type of project, and we recommend that the commission close an issue on this proposal.
Thank you, Drew. Commissioners, questions and comments?
I have a question. First, I just want to say this. I'm always excited when projects like this come before us. But I had a question about like the mulching of the frag. Have you done that before? I've definitely seen projects where, the tiniest little rhizome will, if it has any life in it at all, will re-root itself. I guess I'm wondering why you wouldn't just like cut the frag stems, the old stems, and just remove them from the site.
Yeah, I think that's a good question. Certainly, the way or the method that we use to cut it is there's going to be no disturbance to the soil. It's really kind of low impact manual cutting with kind of almost hedge trimmers. And the reason that we leave the material on site is that we have found that, one, it's difficult to remove the material, and often the level of traffic, I'll say, throughout the wetland area in order to kind of get that material collected and out often imparts more, I'll say, disturbance to the area. And two, right. I think that there is some literature that suggests that leaving the mulched material in place provides an increase in soil temperature that helps promote germination of the native seed bank that may be dormant there. And so that we see some increase or not increase, but some expedited recolonization by native species as a result of that method.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Hi, Keith, it's Caitlin. So I just wanted to reiterate, too, that the plan overall does not call for active replanting of the area. You will be relying on the native seed bank to recolonize the area, correct?
That is correct, yes.
Thank you.
Seems to be an isolated patch. Luckily, it's not. I don't see any other areas of infestation nearby. Hopefully not. So it's a good candidate area for this type of eradication. Stands a good chance.
Yeah.
Other questions and comments from the commissioners? Hearing none, is there anyone in the audience who would like to make commentary?
Nobody's called in.
If there's further discussion, we'll entertain a motion.
Sorry, I guess I fell asleep there because I didn't hear anything. I guess I will then offer a close an issue in regards to the application of Flat Pond Homeowners Association at 3 Great Field Landing, which is a part of the New Seabury Dunes Golf Course. And I did not hear a specific condition. So, no conditions.
No conditions that we heard or that we recommend.
I'll second.
Thank you, Alex. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Voting. Charlie.
Yes.
Brad.
Yes.
Alex.
Yes.
Paul.
Yes.
Brian.
Yes.
Tom.
Aye.
I vote aye as well. Motion carries.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Cape and Islands is still, Raul is still representing this next project. So whenever you're ready, Chad, he's already in the Zoom.
There's a man tonight. Now calling the 609 hearing for John Cumming, Simons Narrows LLC, 353 Simons Narrows Road. Proposed construction and maintenance of a new single-family dwelling. IA Title V septic system and landscaping, hardscaping modifications. Representative is Cape and Islands Engineering. This is an NOI.
Good evening. Raul Liccardi from Cape and Islands Engineering, representing the applicant for this project. This project was first presented at a hearing 2 weeks ago. At that time, we continued the hearing because the commission was not in favor of the allowance of allowing work within the 50-foot buffer. At the time, we were asking for intruding into the 50-foot buffer to the coastal bank by approximately 600 square feet along the side of what was a larger house on the garage side. So we continued the hearing so that the developer could go back into redesigning the house and the shape and redesigning the lot in a way so that there is no intrusion into the 50-foot buffer to that coastal bank. So these proposed changes in the revised plan are the following. The house was reduced in footprint to fit within the limits of that buffer zone. The septic system was reduced in size by eliminating what would have been a playroom that, in terms of Title V, qualifies as a bedroom above the garage. So that way, instead of a 5-bedroom septic system, now we have a 4-bedroom septic system. In the first hearing, what we were proposing to do is offset the 600 square foot intrusion into the buffer zone with a denitrifying septic system for the 5-bedroom. However, the commission, and we actually were not aware, but were informed during the hearing, that this lot is in the eyesight for the town to be an area to be sewered. So if we're going to be sewered, the commission didn't see the adequacy of having the offset or the trade-off of a denitrifying septic system for intrusion into the buffer zone when the site will eventually become sewered and then the denitrifying septic system will have no play in this lot. So this project with a 4-bedroom septic system reduced flow, and we eliminated the need for a denitrifying septic system, hoping on the future connection to the town sewer. The limit of work is located right at the 50-foot buffer. The side closest to the garage to the limit of work is 7.5 feet. The deck, although it's just a deck, it's just built on sonotubes, that is about a foot off the limit of work. But being that it's just a deck with sonotubes, there is no need for intruding beyond that limit of work. The proposed grading that we have on this site, we are meeting the existing grades at the limit of work. So there's no need for grading beyond that limit of work, which was the case before in the project from 2 weeks ago. So this project, as presented, addressed the comments and the concerns from the hearing 2 weeks ago, and we hope that we can get approval for this project now. If there's any questions, I'll be happy to answer.
Thank you, Raul. Drew, comments?
Sure. So we overall believe that this project now does meet the 50-foot buffer zone requirement for undeveloped lots. Just had a couple quick questions for clarification, Raul, too. The area that's slated for, I just wasn't sure if it was slated for lawn or for planting beds along the north and east side along the limit of work.
So those are planting beds. The one that has the green plus a little kind of grassy hatch, those are planting beds.
That's
the
all
one that is
beds.
just a light green, which is over the septic system and over the, exactly, those areas are the limited to 10% of the lot for lawn areas.
Okay, very good. And if I heard you correctly, so there will not be a denitrifying component to the septic anymore.
Right. If this house is going to be eventually connected to the town sewer, going through that expense and those monitoring, it's probably too much effort at the beginning to then just decommission all of that.
Sure. Okay, very good. And I'll read the Board of Health comments in for record. The septic design plans currently are under review by the Board of Health. Floor plans to be reviewed upon submission to the building department. And the building department didn't have any additional comments for this particular meeting. But yes, overall, I think with the new footprint and pushing back from that 50-foot buffer zone, not having any disturbance beyond the limit of work, that this project does meet the performance standards for coastal bank salt marshland subject to coastal storm flowage, and we do recommend to close an issue.
Thank you, Caitlin. Questions and comments from the commissioners?
I have a question.
Go ahead, Alex.
I just want to, I don't remember if it was in this plan or not. Drew, maybe you could just remind me. Was there to be like bounds or markers set on the property at the 50-foot? Like, I'm worried that the trees that are close to the deck are going to disappear in a couple of years. Is there a way that we can like clearly define where the 50-foot buffer is so that they don't disturb anything past it?
Yes, that could be a condition in the, if you were to issue an order of conditions, that could be a specific condition to have the 50-foot setback clearly delineated in the field prior to construction. And then, we have this boilerplate condition that has several conditions that have to be met prior to signing off on a building permit. And that is, establishment of the work limit, inspection of that work limit, inspection of the staking to make sure everything is in accordance with the plan of record that the commission approved. So we can have those conditions and an additional condition just highlighted just because of the proximity of one of the structures to that 50-foot line, the deck, to ensure that that 50-foot setback is clearly visible. And if it is to be, discovered that it's going to be encroached upon for any reason at that time, we can bring it back before the commission. But I completely understand what you're saying, Alex. It's that inevitable construction overreach, but as Raul did say, for the deck area, you're looking at just sonotubes for the probably minimal amount of activity there when it comes to disturbance, but nonetheless, it is right up against the 50, so we can certainly add a condition to clearly delineate the 50-foot setback in the field prior to construction. Yeah.
Okay, great, thanks.
Sure.
Other questions and comments from the commissioners?
Yeah, Chad, I'd like to make a comment. I'm kind of disappointed that the IA system has been withdrawn. I mean, we all know the problem that the water bodies that we have here at Mashpee are facing. And yes, sewering is highly desirable, and at some point it is going to come. But that's not right away. We all know that. And if the applicant was willing to put in the IA system the first time around, why not now?
I can answer to that. Before, when we were proposing this project with an IA system, we were unaware that this site was proposed to be sewered. We were just, the first time I actually heard, and our office heard about the sewering of this site was during that hearing. And at other hearings that I've heard in the Board of Health side of permitting, one of the things that the health department is looking to do or not to do is requesting septic upgrades for those sites that are immediately in the first phase for sewering, just because they don't want the homeowners to go through the expense of updating a system that will soon after be decommissioned altogether because of sewering. If we were proposing a septic system here with enhanced treatment and multiple monitoring and analysis and upkeep, to then say 2, 3, 4 years down the road, completely be decommissioned and these structures to be removed, it will be an added expense for the homeowner. In terms of the 4 years of use or 5 years of use, for then later turning into a town sewer connection or whatever type of connection happens, it seems like an expense that is unnecessary at the moment. This project, as proposed through the Health Department and the DEP Title V regulation, does not trigger a denitrifying septic system.
It doesn't change my disappointment. I mean, if it was proposed, and now all of a sudden you're just going to take it away because you feel as though sewering's coming and that's an easy out.
So isn't the, it's one of these things that we're going to run into for the next 10 to 15 years. It's like everybody's going to defer and delay because they don't want to do the expense. But it's going to be a long time, even though they're in phase one. And the owner of this property can certainly say, I'm going to consider it. And one of these days, I'll have the extra money and I'll make the investment and hook up to the sewers. It's very possible that there will be no sewerage from the municipality, so to speak, for a long, long time. So here's an opportunity to do it right, and to demonstrate to the neighbors and whatever the right way to do the job. But we can't require that.
And again, my sense of disappointment comes with the fact that this is not an upgrade. It's not an existing homeowner that's trying to make ends meet and has a failed system and needs to get it back online. This is a brand new project. This is an additional septic system that's being requested to be installed into an area where we have a serious problem already.
I mean, before I can commit to anything, I would like to hear the opinion of the other members in terms of this, because I know the hearing 2 weeks ago, the feeling that we got from those first comments was that the denitrifying septic system was not that important because it was going to be a site that was going to be sewered. And right now, I understand that sewering a town or a neighborhood takes time, and it could be decades. I understand that. But from the first hearing, and from what I'm hearing now, it's kind of a different opinion now that you still want the denitrifying septic system. I just want to hear from the other commissioners before I commit to something.
Raul, I think you might be referring. I think Raul might be referring to my comments last meeting, but I was speaking to losing buffer within the 50-foot setback was not acceptable just because there was a denite system. So I was comparing something different. I was saying I don't want to lose, however many square feet within the 50-foot buffer just because there's a denite system. Because last meeting it was pitched that, okay, there's a denite system. We're doing above and beyond. We don't even have to do this, and we're choosing to. So you should let us take away some of the 50-foot buffer. So that was what I was speaking to last time, just for clarification. I was not saying that a denite system is not better than a typical Title V.
I do understand that, and a denite is better than a standard Title V system. But we just got the wrong impression, I guess, from the first hearing. If the rest of the commission feels the same way, the applicant was willing to do a denite before for the project to be developed, and if that's the condition that the rest of the board feels will get this project moving forward, then I would agree to a condition of such, that the denite be back in the design.
Great.
At the moment, I've heard of two of the commissioners about this opinion. I would like to know about the rest of the commissioners.
Well, Raul, I can certainly express that our purview is a net environmental benefit. And so for us, it's within our responsibility to be more pessimistic on the time frame of when sewerage will fully come to this particular parcel. And I can see from the homeowner's point of view, well, if we're going to have sewerage soon, why isn't the Title V acceptable? I stand with my commissioners in saying that I would have rather seen the Superior system included, but I would like some clarification actually from Drew or Caitlin. Is this something we can condition? Because I believe the Title V is within the town standard.
Yes, I would say under your purview, under the bylaw and the commission in dealing with projects and resource area values such as water quality, you do indeed have jurisdiction in this area. Maybe not to, require specific septic system components, so to speak, but as far as, reducing impacts overall to the values associated with the resource areas present on the site. And I think Paul iterated that quite clearly, that this is a heavily impacted water body, Shoestring Bay, and any sort of efforts to reduce nitrogen loading into an already heavily eutrophed system would certainly be a net environmental benefit and warrants conditioning.
In that case, I fully support both Paul and Alex's opinion that to protect this already overburdened water resource, the original system should be included.
So in that case, I will be agreeable to that type of special condition that should this project get approval, it will be through the installation of a denitrifying septic system, because I believe at the first hearing there was some talk about phosphorus removal, but being that this is Shoestring Bay, saltwater estuary, nitrogen is the major pollutant in this location. So a denitrifying septic system will be the appropriate avenue.
Comments from other commissioners? Well, Raul, I certainly appreciate that pledge from you. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to speak on this project?
No.
With no further questions, if there's none from the commissioners, we'll entertain a motion and keep in mind the proposed condition of the septic.
I would move that we close an issue with the following conditions in regards to the application of John Cumming of Simon's Narrows LLC at 353 Simon Narrows Road, with the conditions of 1, to delineate the 50-foot work limit area so that it is protected from any damage to the immediate area, and that the denitrification system, as originally called out on the first application, be returned to this application.
Thank you, Brad. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Thank you, Charlie. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll call a vote. Charlie?
Yes.
Brad?
Yes?
Alex?
Yes.
Paul?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
Tom? Aye. I vote aye as well. Motion carries. Thank you, Raul.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm going to let Jack Colley into the meeting. Just give me one moment here. He's representing the next project. Jack, are you on the line? Can you hear us? Jack Colley, are you on the line? Oh, he's connecting. Looks like he's connecting to audio, so we'll give him a second. Jack, can you hear us?
I'm going to call him.
Okay, we're gonna call him. 1 second.
Give him the 2-minute warning.
There he is.
Oh, Jack, it's me. Just call him with the number that Drew has on the phone on the screen, okay? Call the number that Drew has on the screen. (508) 539 1449. Yep. And he just let you into the meeting, so, all right. Yes. Great, thank you.
Jack, can you hear us? Oh, I guess he's dialing in. Can you hear us, Jack?
1 minute.
Good evening.
Hey, Jack, how are you?
I think I'm okay. I'm not really sure. You tell me if we're okay.
All right, we're going to have...
now, and I'll be calling your meeting to order promptly.
Okay,
now calling the 612 meeting hearing for Mark R. and Robin L. Galante, 153 Captain's Row. Proposed relocation of existing dwelling from 164 Captain's Row, new septic, landscape, and hardscaping. Representative is J.E. Landers Kelly. This is an RDA.
Good evening. I'm not sure I have to lend too much. This is the submission of an RDA. I reviewed the project with the staff. We staked the project, I think it was yesterday. We staked the front corners. We staked the house. We staked the general location of the driveway. And it's a project that is just barely within the Rivers Act, i.e., if you look at the plan, you'll see the outer riparian zone goes across the entire front of the lot. hence, it was the opinion of the staff that we should file an RDA because the work is minimal. The work is about, well, if it was another 20 feet further away, it would be out of your jurisdiction. So I think given the location of the property, it was consistent that the staff request us to file an RDA. It's pretty straightforward. I'll answer any questions you have about the project.
Thank you. Drew and Caitlin, comments?
Yeah, so I can just go over just some images just to refresh the commissioners on this original project that was reviewed under a previous notice of intent. This property here, this is 164 Captain's Row. This is the project that was brought before you a little while back for the transportation removal of the house here at 164 to be transported over here to this undeveloped lot at 153 Captain's Row. So just to give you the background there, that's the genesis of this current application before you. And then just to show you some images of the site, this is the existing site where the foundation will be constructed and the house from 164 will be moved to. And then you could just see this bottom photo here just shows you this right here, this general area strip along here just off the road shoulder is what you see delineated here on the plan with this dashed line, outer riparian zone. So very small area in the outer 100 to 200 foot setback in riverfront associated with the Mashpee River. That's the Mashpee River in the background on the other side of the street. So obviously it meets all of the standards for under the Riverfront Act, under the bylaw, lands abutting rivers and streams, and under the State Wetlands Protection Act, 10.58 riverfront. The threshold of alteration is well below, or the proposed alteration, I should say, is well below the allowed threshold for areas on a lot within riverfront. So, but nonetheless, we did want to get a scope of what was happening here, and you can see this driveway and maybe some associated excavation with the septic is what you're seeing in this particular area. And nothing more to add. And then, I don't know if Caitlin has any comments from Building and Board of Health.
Sure. First, I just wanted to ask you, Jack, is there a plan for the driveway to be impervious or pervious?
I'm sorry, say that again. Is the driveway to be pervious or impervious?
Yes.
He would prefer pervious. The client is looking for a soft appearance to the property. And what I mean by that is either shells or stone versus pavement.
Oh, very good. Okay, thank you.
Right answer.
All right, and for the Board of Health, they states that the septic design plans are to be reviewed upon submission to the Board of Health, floor plans to be reviewed upon submission to the building department. And building has no concerns at this time. We also do recommend if the commission decides to issue a negative determination to condition the area within the riverfront to fall under our lawn standards. Thank you.
Thank you, Caitlin. Commissioners, questions and comments?
I've got a question, Chad.
Go ahead, Paul.
I'm looking at the profile of sewage disposal system layout, and I don't see a groundwater elevation reading on it.
I know where you're coming from. The groundwater, if you were to go across the street, and I guess we had the benefit of working at 164. The groundwater is somewhere in the vicinity of about elevation 3. I can submit some supporting information to that effect, but if you were to go across the street, mean high water, and even the spring tide would be below elevation 3. So the freshwater lens in that area would be somewhere around elevation 3, 3.5, 4. It floats across the saltwater. We will verify that with the Board of Health, but we're well above it at this point.
Paul, would you like to see evidence submitted as a condition?
Yes, I would like to see that. I'm kind of surprised. I mean, the plan is very thorough. There's a lot of data on this plan, but there's no groundwater.
Well, we would be happy to add it and then submit a revised second page.
Well, and also in keeping with my concerns, why not an IA system proposal?
Well, I think it's unduly onerous in that we're over 150 feet away from any vegetated wetland. We're almost completely out of the jurisdiction of the conservation altogether, and it is a 3-bedroom design. I don't think it's excessive by today's standards. We see many homes or proposed homes being 4 or 5 bedrooms. So a 3-bedroom design, I think, is modest, and given the proximity of the lot with the relationship to the wetlands, I think it's a stretch to ask us to do IA. We just priced out an IA system the other day, and it was, in addition to the normal septic system, an additional about $10,000. So I do think it's an expense that we just don't need to do.
Well, I respectfully don't agree, but that's your opinion.
Right.
Is this area in the same area where we just had comments in regards to asking for an IA system as opposed to a Title V system? Isn't it not the same area from the sewerage standpoint?
I don't quite understand the question. What the IA system will do is it pre-treats the effluent before it gets into the soil absorption system. So typically 3-bedroom systems with the microfast, you'll be looking at
Jack, that's interesting and educational, but right now we're trying to deal with it. We made a recommendation to another property owner, which I believe is in the same area where we asked for a condition to be taken care of and added. Can anybody tell me for sure whether Simons Narrows Road is in the same area of the sewerage project?
I don't know the answer to that, Brad. I don't have the phase sewer plan at my disposal, so I don't know if it's part of phase 3 area of town to be sewered. I simply don't have the answer to that question.
Well, the only reason why I raise it, I'd like to move on as well, but we've made a decision, recommendation on another property, and we're inconsistent in our decisions if we decide differently in regards to this property.
It's my impression that and I'm happy to be corrected, that the main concern with the previous property was the proximity to the resource. I think we were looking at the 50-foot buffer right at the edge of construction.
Yeah, but it's also just because of the state of the waters. So I think it's just, 150 feet away from a river, all of that is still going to end up in there. It's sand. So, I agree that it should be an IA system.
Well, I'm not sure how to respond to that. If that's the decision of the board, I guess, we have to accept it. I guess I'm a little bit surprised.
Well, can I clarify what I'm looking at that plan that you have, the profile sewage disposal system. You've got a perk rate at less than 2. You have no groundwater elevations, and you're proposing 377 gallons per day. A Title V system runs anywhere from 23 to 42 milligrams per liter of nitrogen output, and an IA system is 5 to 11. So to me, it's a pretty good investment considering the condition of the water resources in the town of Mashpee.
Well, I'm not going to argue that it's better. That would be foolish of me because it is better treatment of the effluent. I really need to get back to my client and see if this is a major issue. I don't know. I was a little bit surprised by the question. Otherwise, I would have had an answer prepared for you ahead of time. If that is the only issue, I would also ask that the board make that a part of the recommendation and let us move this project forward, because the other side of it is we need to park that house somewhere. And I think my instinct is my client will think about it and discuss it, and if we really have a problem with it, they'll come back before the commission and discuss the alternatives.
I just wanted to offer up a suggestion and recommendation. I think that maybe it would be in the best interest of the applicant for us to continue this versus moving ahead and voting now, just because of some of the concerns that were raised. I wouldn't want to see a vote come out the minute not pass because of the commission's concerns, and obviously want to give the applicant the respect to go back and talk to who we got to talk to before voting on it. That's just how I personally feel. I don't know how it is.
Like, I hear the. Go ahead. I hear the I'm sorry, all of a sudden I just lost my train of thought, but at this point, Jack has proposed that he take the project off the table, go back and work with his client and return if it's appropriate. Am I making that up? Help me out, folks.
I believe Jack was asking, and I can let him speak to it, Jack was asking for the approval with the condition of the better system, and if his client had a problem with that, they would come back before the commission. Then Brian offered the proposal of postponing the hearing so they can supply not only the information that was asked for by Paul on the groundwater level, but also consult their client.
That is a correct statement. I'd like to move it forward so the client has the assurance that he can move the house and schedule the house moving that works best for him, and then under a separate issue, if he simply can't accept the IA, then he can go back and he can discuss it with you. But I would prefer it to be approved today, if at all possible.
So we would require through condition the IA system tonight if such a motion were made, and you would be happy with that approval and come back if there was an issue with your client, correct?
That is correct.
Other commissioners, do you have statements or comments before we entertain a motion?
If I could just put out a comment towards that, moving forward with a vote at this time. If you're looking at conditioning something, and conditioning RDAs is pretty unusual. It's done, in some cases where a condition is rather minor in scope. I don't think that this falls under a minor scope type of condition. So, this is just my recommendation that you should encourage if this is, what you're looking to require, that you should encourage a continuance Because the very nature of an RDA, if you issue a negative determination, is you're saying, in essence, this does not need to be conditioned, and I don't think that's an appropriate motion based on what I'm hearing.
Well, I guess then at this point I ask, when's your next meeting? Because I'm sure this conversation with my client's going to come up in the next couple of days.
February 10th.
And so if we could be continued to if you have a meeting around the 10th of February, that'd be wonderful.
That is, the next meeting is February 10th.
So if I may, I'd like to request a continuance to the 10th of February, and we'll address these issues. And I'll either give you a plan that has the IEA and the groundwater, or be prepared to discuss something otherwise.
Okay. So it's at February 10th at 6:12 p.m. is the next available hearing slot.
Okay.
There's no other discussion. We'll entertain a motion.
I would move for a continuance in regards to the application of Mark R. and Robin L. Galante, 153 Captain's Road, to February 10th at 6:12 p.m.
Second.
Thank you, Brad. Thank you, Charlie. If there's no further discussion, we'll begin voting. Charlie?
Yes.
Brad?
Yes.
Alex?
Yes.
Paul?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
Tom?
Aye.
I vote aye as well. Motion carries.
Thank you, board members. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you for that suggestion, Brian. The RDA condition that Drew outlined escaped me there, so I appreciate you bringing us back to a better point of order there.
Yeah, I just want us to do our due diligence and due process here and take our time. So appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Okay. The next hearing has been requested to be continued. This is the 6:15 hearing, 55 Horseshoe Bend Way. They just haven't received a DEP number yet. So the continuance has been requested for February 10th at 6:09 p.m. We have to open the hearing first, and then you can vote on that continuance.
All right. Now calling the 6:15 hearing for 55 Horseshoe Bend Way, proposed septic system upgrade and construction of stairway. Representative Shea Environmental Services, at the request of the applicant, this NOI is requested to be continued.
I would move that we continue the application of Joe Modulewski at 55 Horseshoe Bend Way, continue until February 10th at 6:09 p.m.
Thank you, Brad. Do we hear a second? Thank you, Charlie. There's no further discussion. I'll begin voting. Charlie?
Yes.
Brad?
Yes.
Alex?
Yes.
Paul?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
Tom?
Aye.
I vote aye as well. Motion carries.
Okay, we have Arlene Wilson who's joined the meeting. And Arlene, can you hear us on the line?
Yes.
Okay, so Chad, whenever you're ready, we can call the 6:18 hearing.
Thank you, Drew. Now calling the 6:18 hearing for James Cass, applicant, 42 CNS Drive, proposed tree and invasive removal with replanting an existing view shed, Owner of record, New Seabury Promontory Point, Representative A.M. Wilson, Associates Incorporated. This is an RDA.
Good evening. Arlene Wilson, A.M. Wilson Associates, here for the applicants. This is a project that proposes essentially two aspects. One is the removal of 4 mature oaks that are in the view shed for this project. And it's a little bit odd because the view is not across the wetland and the pond, but rather to the southwest, sort of along the line of the condominiums. So it gets further away from the wetland rather than closer. And then there are quite a number of invasives that have grown up in this area. We'd like to take there's a view shed picture. We'd like to remove the invasives and replace them with natives. The trees that are going to be removed, by the way, are also going to be replaced, but rather than with overstory materials, with native understory trees that hopefully won't grow up into the view shed again. I understand that there were questions because we had suggested the removal of up to 20% of the saplings in the work area. Those are predominantly natives. They're pin cherry and oak. But the problem is that they're quite close together, and they'll crowd not only each other out, but everything else as well. And so we wanted to give a little bit of breathing room so that there will be native trees that continue to come up, but they'll have enough space. And the replanting materials are predominantly shrubs and ground covers. The property line has been staked in the field. The 4 trees that we want to come down have been flagged in the field. And the property line staking is going to ensure that the work doesn't intrude beyond the buffer zone. All of this work in the section where you have jurisdiction is at least 66 feet from the adjacent BVW around that little pond. Most of it is further away than that. I'd be happy to answer questions.
Caitlin can provide comments if you'd like.
Yeah, so overall, there's no proposed alterations within the Board of Vegetative Wetland. The invasive species removal aspect of the plan also should offset the impacts of the trees requested to be removed. Again, we did have questions regarding the treatment of cherry and oak saplings, and it looks like Arlene had addressed that. I just wanted clarification, Arlene. I thought I had seen before that this had an existing vista pruning permit, or is this just a brand new?
There was work that was done when the condominiums were first constructed. It's a long time ago. It's probably 15 years since there's been any real vegetative work done here.
Okay, so there was an existing vista pruning permit. This is just an additional request for removal due to the fact that it hasn't been maintained.
That's my understanding, and I wasn't involved in the original work, but that's what I'm told by my clients.
Yeah, and I'll just to clarify that. Yeah, I do recall having a site visit out there with a different previous consultant where they did try to work out a vista pruning corridor here, and you can see, just to go back to some of the images here. I think these kind of tell the story the best. You've got quite the tangled, it's a very thick buffer before you hit this BVW here associated with the small pond. And I think the efforts to try and accommodate a view corridor for a condo complex as opposed to a single family lot, you got to look at some, changing the standards up a bit just to achieve the ultimate goal of a view corridor. And that's really what this is proposing to do. And the reason it's an RDA is because all the proposed alterations, including the removal of invasive species, planting of native species, calling for the removal of 4 total trees, all outside the 50-foot buffer. And in Regulation 29, which deals with natural vegetative buffer zones and buffer strips, the Commission can entertain RDAs for vista pruning that lies within the 50 to 100-foot setback. So that's why I had recommended an RDA for this particular application. So it's a bit different than what you'd normally see in a vista pruning kind of scenario, but, and again, citing Regulation 29, there is language that reflects that the Commission should use a greater degree of discretion when it comes to trying to accommodate views from a condo complex as opposed to a single-family home. So I think that the way that this has been planned out would accomplish those goals. It's certainly good to see. It's kind of hard to see right here, this bottom photo here, that's all Japanese knotweed. There's all kinds of tangled Asian bittersweet in here. So there's quite a few really nasty invasives. So it's great to see an effort being made to eradicate those and supplant them with native species. And then while trying to accommodate a good view shed corridor for the condo owner. So no other comments.
Thank you, Drew. Comments from the commissioners?
I have a question. So, Drew, I agree with you that if it was accommodating a bunch of people in the condo complex, it would totally be worth it. But how many actual units are benefiting from this? Based off the way the view shed is, it kind of looks like it's only one, but I'm just curious on site if it's different.
Well, maybe 2 or 3, but not much more.
Actually, being out there and standing on the balcony for these things, it's probably 5 or 6.
Okay.
Yeah, going back to this photo here, this is the kind of taken at the beginning of the corner where you round into the beginning of the units here. So this is where that view shed is coming out right here. So I think it will accommodate maybe not a totally equitable view across the board, but that's really just not feasible when it comes to condo units. But I think collectively it looks like it's going to achieve the goal of trying to improve views, from each unit. It's tricky when it comes to condo units.
And that's where the view is. I mean, where they're asking for, that's the view that looks over Vineyard Sound. But to the left, it looks over golf course. So the view is exactly where they're laying it out. There's no question.
Yeah. They don't want a view to this. They want a view out here.
That's a not taken care of area after a construction of probably 45 years ago.
Right.
It's just left to develop itself.
And it's a very robust planting plan overall, too, with a lot of native shrubs slated for planting. So there's definitely a good trade-off here.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a good project. These are the species here that are proposed as part of the native plantings. So it's a good list.
Of shrubs and ground cover.
Shrubs and ground cover, yeah.
Other comments and questions from the commissioners?
I've got a question. The plan on the cherry and oak saplings is to take those as well, correct?
About 20% of them.
20%?
Yes. Which is, actually, that's the number in your regulation.
Yeah, it's up to 20%, Paul, as part of the pruning protocols. Discretionary, of course, to the commission, up to 20% of saplings to be removed in a view corridor. And then other percentages of pruning for larger mature trees and pruning of ground cover, things of that nature.
Right. And who would decide what 20% goes or what 20%
Right.
So,
So that gets worked out during an onsite. It's kind of hard to really pinpoint that on a plan, and that's what
Right.
we've done historically with all vista pruning permits is we make it a condition of the permit that we meet out at the site with the contractor, chosen contractor to do the work, so we're all on the same page, and then just kind of looking at it right then and there and trying to figure out which ones would be the most advantageous to take out to achieve the goals, the view considerations. So that's the best way we can do it, really.
yep. Okay, I'm good with that. Thank you.
There's also the time of year restriction too associated with vista pruning that we recommend would be adhered to in this situation too. That pruning could occur between November 1st and March 1st.
Right. It would adhere to all the normal protocols for vista pruning under our regs.
Okay.
Other questions and comments from the commissioners? Is there anyone who's called in to make comment on this project?
Nope.
There's no further discussion. We'll entertain a motion.
I would move that we have a negative determination in regards to the application of James Cass for 42 CNS Drive for proposed tree and invasive removal and replanting of the existing view shed with a condition that all parties concerned meet on site and agree upon the actions to be taken.
Second.
Thank you, Brad. Thank you, Charlie. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, call a vote. Charlie?
Yes.
Brad?
Yes.
Alex?
Yes.
Paul?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
Tom? Aye. I vote aye as well. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Arlene.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to, well, I don't need to let him in. He's already here. Back by popular demand.
Now calling to order the 621 hearing, Oscar J. Bienvedez and Elise M. Tavares, 113 James Circle, proposed reconstruction and expansion of pool. Representative is Cape and Islands Engineering, and this is an NOI.
Good evening, once again. For the record, Raul Lizardi from Cape and Islands Engineering, representing the applicant at 113 James Circle. This property is a single-family residence. It currently has a pool in the backyard and a pool patio. The property is located in the southwestern lagoon of John's Pond. Not the main pond, but that lagoon that kind of projects south of John's Pond. What the applicant wants to do is remove the existing pool and pool patio and reconstruct a bigger pool with a spa attached to that pool. The expansion of this pool improvement is such that there's an additional 415 square feet of pool and pool patio within areas that are currently lawn. There's no proposed vegetation in terms of shrubbery or trees to be removed, but there is the occupancy of 415 square feet of lawn area. We received comments from the staff, and the recommendation is that 450 feet happening within the 50 to 100 foot buffer to the inland bank of John's Pond should be mitigated by. And the recommended mitigation is like the typical mitigation for a waiver. Not that this project requires a waiver, but the waiver mitigation for development within the 50 to 100 is a 1-to-1 ratio. So I approached the applicant, my client, with these recommendations from staff, and he agrees that he can do so. The recommendation is for the plantings to be along the shores of John's Pond. Currently, if you look at the pictures that Drew is showing, the property is practically lawn all the way down to the shores of the pond. So there's very little natural vegetation at the edge of the pond. So what we're proposing to do is approximately 260 square feet to be planted left of the existing pier adjacent to the existing vegetation. There is a portion of existing natural vegetation that is to remain. And what we're proposing to do is approximately 260 square feet, projecting out of that existing vegetation along the shores of John's Pond for about 33 feet. And then to the right of the existing pier, there is an existing shrub, kind of sapling with some woody species around it. Although in this aerial that is being shown, it's the GIS from the town, it does not quite properly project the actual property line. On the actual site plan, you see that the property line happens a bit further away from the shrub, and there is an area that's available of lawn to be removed or replaced with mitigation planting. So in that area, we propose a bit of a trapezoid shape of about 160 square feet. The two areas would add up to the 415 square feet at a 1-to-1 ratio. In addition to this, the current pool does not have a dry well. What we're proposing here, which is typical for all the pool projects we propose, is we're proposing a dry well for any maintenance of drawing down the pool level to be used through a dry well rather than discharging the water onto the lawn, which eventually reaches the pond. So that's the project. The only access to this site is through the right side of the property. So we do have a construction access along that side of the property, and there's a limit of work along the right side of the property and through the lawn in the backyard. If there's any questions, I'll be happy to answer.
Thank you, Raul. Drew and Caitlin, comments?
Sure. So, Raul, first, is there a way that you could potentially share that revised mitigation plan?
Yeah, I apologize, Raul. I didn't add it to the presentation. I don't know if you have it available, but.
I actually do have it if I can share my screen.
Yep, I'll stop sharing whenever you're ready.
Great, thank you.
Yes, so hopefully everyone can see the screen that I have in front of me. So essentially it is the same plan. It only highlights the two pieces of mitigation area that I presented to Drew via email. I did not submit the revised plan because in terms of the revised, we had to add additional notes to the plan in terms of species of plants and so forth. But in scope of the area, this is what we proposed and the applicant agreed to have done. 450 square feet is not a lot of area, but it can be accomplished in these two corners that does not affect his use of the property. In this project, I forgot to mention, I did call out that note that any disturbed lawn areas will be restored with the Mashpee regulated lawn seed. Thanks.
Okay, very good. So we appreciate that that your client was able to or is willing to work with the one-to-one mitigation. And a lot of time with mitigation, it really can be site specific, and this particular site definitely could benefit from it. As you can see, the extensive lawn and definitely enhancing the buffer along the water is beneficial and a good trade-off for the expansion of the pool within the 50 to 100 foot. And again, we will, of course, condition the lawn areas that are to be reestablished to adhere to our lawn standards. But overall, I think that the project does meet the performance standards for inland bank and border vegetated wetland. And we will work again with Raul to create a good planting plan for the mitigation areas. So it'll be contingent. We'll issue the order of conditions if you approve the project tonight upon receipt of those revised plans. Thank you.
Thank you, Caitlin. Commissioners, questions and comments?
Chad, I've got a question.
Go ahead, Paul.
What would be the distance between the block fire pit and the proposed mitigation planting area?
All right, give me a minute here. I've got the screen in front of me.
That fire pit's staying, I assume.
Right. No proposed changes to that. That's roughly 11.5 feet.
11.5?
Yes. Which for a fire pit, there's plenty of separation for the use of that fire pit. Most of the people will probably be sitting on the upland side looking over the water.
Right. Is it just a pit, Raul, or is it, like an erect stone fireplace type of thing? I haven't been on the site, so I'm not familiar with what it looks like.
It's just a standalone pit. There's no associated hardscaping around it. It's surrounded by grass. It's just your typical brick round fire pit coming out of the ground. Yeah.
Yeah, I have a picture, but it's at a pretty far distance of it. So it looks like it's just that one of those pits that has that stone veneer around it.
Right.
And yeah, it's fairly small in footprint type.
Wouldn't you know it, Paul? I have every angle on this property except the one that looks at the fire pit.
Can't you run out there with a flashlight and get a shot of that?
Yes, sir.
Well, my concern is that, you get like a 4th of July bonfire going and the saplings are too close and they get singed and we're right back where we started.
Yeah, that's it right there. If you
can nice.
Yeah, there it is.
Drew, if you like, I can share my screen. I do have a picture. It is from a distance, though.
Okay.
I bet it's better than yours, Drew.
So, right there in the middle of the picture, that's the fire pit. So 12 feet away from it, I believe it's a comfortable distance for the use of a fire pit such as this one.
Yeah.
But in this picture, you can actually see how much lack of vegetation is beyond down the inland bank.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thanks.
Other questions and comments from the commissioners?
Kate has just a couple of additional comments.
Yeah, just wanted to state the building department comment was this work was determined to be by right, and the Board of Health states that required setbacks from poolside, wall to tank, and leaching are 10-foot and 20-foot respectively and must be maintained. Access to septic components covers must be maintained. Note the location of the septic system and restrict equipment, vehicle traffic over non-load bearing H10 components. Thank you.
Thank you, Caitlin. Other questions, comments from the commissioners? Or anyone in the audience who has called in?
No.
All right. If there's no further discussion, we'll entertain a motion.
I would include in the motion the submittal of a revised mitigation plan with species and details of the proposed mitigation.
The one-to-one mitigation planting?
Correct.
I would move that in regards to the application of Gregory and Ivy Shantz at 9 Elliott Road.
Nope, it's the one before that.
Yep, it's the one before that. 113 James.
Sorry,
two birds with one stone.
I must have nodded off there. I apologize. I would like to move on the project of Oscar J. Benavides, L.C. Tavares, 113 St. James Circle, proposed reconstruction and expansion of pool. We close we close an issue with the fact that the mitigation, the one-to-one mitigation plan be revised.
Thank you, Brad. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Charlie. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll call a vote. Charlie?
Yes.
Brad?
Yes.
Alex?
Yes.
Paul?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
Tom? Aye. I vote aye as well. Motion carries.
Thank you. Good night,
Thank
everyone.
you, Raul. Good night.
Thank you, Raul.
He's not leaving, is he?
He gets
He's out of here.
the day off.
He's earned his pay tonight.
I think Brad and Raul get MVP for this game.
All right, I'm going to invite in Mike Ball, who's representing the 9 Elliott Road. Mike, can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you, and I just invited you into the meeting.
Excellent.
All right, and Chad, we're ready to proceed with this one.
Excellent.
Thank
I'll
you.
just say it was great. Almost approved my project before I even had to say a word.
All right, now calling the 624 hearing, Gregory and Ivy Chance, 9 Elliott Road. Proposed deck replacement and porch construction. Representative, Marsh Matters Environmental, this is an IDA.
Yep, that's me. Good evening, Andrew, Caitlin, Mr. Chairman, and Commission members. As you said, Mike Ball from Marsh Matters Environmental, representing the applicants Greg and Ivy Chance of 9 Elliott Road. This is simply a coastal flood zone only project where they're looking to replace a deck and construct a front porch. This is just roughly a 0.2 acre parcel just to the northeast of Dean's Pond over in New Seabury. Steve Cook did the design of the deck and the porch. As shown on the plan, and as I mentioned, it's only a flood zone project. There is coastal beach and coastal dune associated with Nantucket Sound, but that's more than 200 feet away. So this is a ground level deck that'll be replaced, and the front, there's a set of front steps that are covered. They're going to remove the front steps and just put a covered porch across the front of the house. No disturbance of naturally occurring native vegetation, and the only features that will be disturbed are lawn, landscape garden areas, and crushed shell walkway. So Drew's showing you some pictures there. You can see the covered front steps. There'll be a front porch there to replace that bed of landscaping, and then you can see on the side of the house they've got an old deck that'll be replaced. No enlargement, and it'll be built up to current building code standards. No changes in topography will be necessary. No alteration of native vegetation, or 500 square feet of native vegetation, so the project doesn't require any mitigation plantings or anything like that. So it does meet the performance standard for wildlife habitat impact. And that's it in a nutshell. Can answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Drew and Caitlin, comments?
No additional comments. It's a pretty straightforward project, and we recommend a negative determination. Caitlin might have building comments on this? Or?
Oh, yep. The building department states that they received a written finding from ZBA on January 12th regarding this project, and the Board of Health states that access to septic component covers must be maintained. Thank you.
Thank you, Caitlin. Commissioners, questions and comments?
Just a comment from Mike. He might want to be sure of where this property is located. It's located in Popponesset, not in New Seabury. You endanger your life by going into Popponesset by saying it's a part of New Seabury.
Yeah. I never quite know where I am when I'm down there. I'm not sure if Popponesset or New Seabury, but definitely Mashpee. So, thanks for the advice.
Other questions or comments? Anyone called in from the general public?
No.
All right, with no further discussion, we'll entertain a motion.
I would move a negative determination in regards to the application of Gregory and Ivy Chance at 9 Elliott Road, proposed deck replacement and porch construction.
Thank you, Brad. Do I hear a second? there any further discussion? All right, voting. Charlie? Yes. Brad? Yes. Alex?
Yes.
Paul?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
Tom? Aye. I vote aye as well. Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Drew, if you'd like to return to our pre- and post-hearing agenda?
Yes. So the first thing I want to skip to right away is the vote for the Certificate of Authorization. And let me just expand this out here. So as the commission has now transitioned into a remote meeting format, this is what we had previously voted on and subsequently recorded at the Registry of Deeds to allow for automatic signatures of the chairman and the vice chair as signatures on all approved permits. So we don't have to have you coming into the building and signing. As long as the remote format continues, this is what we do to make things a little more streamlined and easier. So I'm going to, I don't know if anyone has I don't think we sent it out to you, but I'm going to put this up on the screen, and this is the motion that you need to make, what you see highlighted in yellow. And it just requires your vote, and then the town clerk will fill out the form, and we'll take it to the Registry of Deeds and get it recorded, and then we won't be tracking you down every meeting to come in to sign the permit. So just make things a little easier. So this is the motion right here. What's highlighted in yellow?
We're not seeing it.
You're not seeing it?
Let me see if I can zoom in on you.
Can you stop sharing your screen?
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
Can you see it now?
Stop
Is this something I have?
I can read
last
it.
time I believe I had to read it.
Don't share your screen and blow it up.
It says.
Do you want me to just, read it in some, sorry, go ahead, Alex.
Yeah, or whoever's reading it, if you just click speaker view, then Drew will be large instead of gallery. You can make Drew your whole screen by clicking speaker view.
I don't know where that is.
Speaker view.
I'm trying to find speaker view.
Revolutionized my world there, Alex.
Oh, there it is.
Wow.
I tried.
Throw up there, Drew. I'll give her a read.
All right.
Oh.
Slide it over a little bit. A little bit more.
Perfect. Perfect. Back the other way, just half an inch. Perfect. Great. I move that the board vote to authorize the chair or in the chair's absence, the vice chair to execute and endorse all decisions, permits, approvals, plans, orders, instrument, and other documents of whatever nature on behalf of and as duly authorized agent for the Mashpee Conservation Commission. I'll second that.
I'll second.
There's no further discussion. We'll move to voting. Charlie?
Yes.
Brad?
Yes.
Alex?
Yes.
Paul?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
Tom? Aye. I vote aye as well. Motion carries.
Great, thank you very much. And then we'll go over the remaining updates here. Red Brook Road Culvert. As the commission was aware, we did receive grant technical assistance from Division of Ecological Restoration. They've hired Horsley Witten Group to be the official consultant to figure out conceptual restoration approaches for the culvert at Red Brook. So that work will be getting started soon, and what needs to take place is full draining of the bog. So the sandbags a couple of sandbags have been removed to accomplish draining of the bog. I reached out to the association to let the association president know about what was happening, and I'm still alive, so I take it they're happy, or at least okay with it. So that's good. Just wanted to give them a heads up, and so that will be taking place, and then Horsley Witten will be able to get in and do a thorough investigation to come up with these conceptual approaches. Upper Quashnet Restoration, again, Horsley Witten Group. They are finalizing the 3 alternative concepts to restoration in the upper Quashnet. So we should be seeing that soon. And this will really be centered around a partial or a full river realignment and a portion of that upper Quashnet bog area. And then other scenarios involving some expanded restoration of the riparian corridor or just realignment. So you'll see a variety, 3 different conceptual approaches, alternatives that Horsey will present. And this is all part of the initial phase of this restoration. Once there's a consensus on the overall approach and conceptual approach moving forward, they'll go to a 50% design in the next phase, and then ultimately finalize a design to get it to a permitting stage, and then pursue actual restoration. So expect that to be shown within, I would say, the next month or so. We'll have something. Horsley Witten will be joining a meeting and presenting these alternatives to you. Does anyone have any questions on that?
My question, they're submitting this in the middle of the winter, making it rather difficult for commissioners to trudge over that area so that they will understand what's really going to happen out there.
Yeah, I think they'll be able to present.
We'll have to do it, I think.
Well, they'll also be able to present some pretty good imagery of the existing conditions out there, taken at a different time of year. So I wouldn't say at this stage it's absolutely necessary to get out there and see it up front and personal. Although you're welcome to, and anyone who wants to get out there will be happy to provide access. But at this stage, I think they should be able to present enough information where you should be able to make an informed decision on that. But if not, we can always accommodate a site visit too. So once everything calms down from the pending storm.
Saturday afternoon might be a good time.
Yeah, right around 4 o'clock.
Yeah, perfect.
All right, I'll see you all there. Okay, so the Bylaw Review Subcommittee, we've been meeting, myself, Paul, Brian, and Alex, and we've been working together to make amendments to 2 different regulations, the first one being Regulation 12, mitigation, and the other one, Regulation 27, docks and piers. And I highlighted that one as the next one up in line because I feel that we're seeing a lot of these dock and pier expansion projects, and I know there's a lot of concerns revolving around those, and some issues that need to be addressed. So I figured that was the next one up, just based on the pulse of the commission and feedback on recent projects involving docks and piers. So did you all receive the documents that I had sent out to everyone? You had 2 sets. One with red highlighted proposed amendments, and then the existing language. And you can see some of the language crossed out. So I just wanted to put it out there for if anyone had any discussion on either one of the proposals that we've worked on. Mitigation is not, there's a couple of things we still need to finalize. Specifically, and I apologize, I don't have the regs up on the screen for you to see, but for mitigation, we're still trying to figure out a calculation or formula to decide on what is best suited for specifically tree removal, large tree removal, and violation scenarios, and what would be a suitable kind of ratio of or matrix of habitat, biomass, replacing the lost biomass of trees that are cut in a violation scenario. So we're still working on that. I think that was, correct me if I'm wrong, Paul, Brian, or Alex, I think that was kind of the last lingering type of amendment we were looking at, and I think everything else is pretty much what you see is going to be very close to, if not exactly what will be, the final amendment on that red highlighted.
Right, there was that feedback from Eastham, I think it was, that had a ratio of 10 to 1.
Yes.
For certain conditions.
Yeah. Yeah, I liked that one. I think it was pretty well thought out. And looking at a lot of other towns' regulations when it comes to mitigation, I don't really see a calculation formula. Nothing on the level that we have for our mitigation calculation chart, at least. I think that's pretty thorough. And I think we're one of the few commissions, at least in this area, that have thought it out to that degree, what we have in the mitigation calculation chart. I haven't really seen anything else. Usually what you see is a 2 to 1. across the board when it comes to mitigation and regulations, based on what I've seen. But that's not to say that we can't take a closer look at it and come up with some kind of something to tie it to, rather than just coming across as arbitrary, throwing out X number of shrubs to compensate for a 18-inch diameter tree, or something like that. So it just needs to be a little more concrete, a little more substantiated. So we'll be working.
And keeping some kind of a discretionary clause, I don't think is a bad idea.
Exactly. Yeah. And you'll see, in the preamble for mitigation that we really want to emphasize that mitigation is the last consideration. All other options should truly be exhausted before mitigation is even considered. So that means reducing footprints, reducing impacts to the greatest degree that you possibly can. And in the instance where, a particular lot size is constraining, in the absence of a tiny house or something like that, that mitigation should be the last tool, the last option, not right up front as a bargaining tool right off the bat. You really should be looking at other alternatives to reduce impacts. And so the preamble really, the rewording of the preamble kind of emphasizes that right off the bat in the beginning of the regulation. And then you'll see obvious formatting changes, sections 1, 2, 3, A, B, C, just for ease of reference. That will be a running theme throughout future regulation amendments. And then just kind of trimming the fat on a lot of the detailed language and mitigation that could be condensed down into kind of an easier to read type of situation, because it just seems a bit wordy. A lot of things that we could easily just put into conditions, and you don't have to have it all spelled out in a regulation. It just seemed to be a bit much, and so I always kind of cringe when I defer people to regulations, and I kind of cross my fingers and be like, I hope they truly have time to understand and absorb what's written, so to make them a little more reader friendly. That's kind of the approach here. So take a look at them, and if anyone has any discussion now, I would welcome it. But you can contact us individually or even as a group, as long as you don't deliberate as a group through email. But if you have suggestions, edits, we welcome them. And the order of events, just to let everybody know, is once we get to a stage where we've finalized, from the commission standpoint, the edits to a given regulation, they then go to public comment, and we advertise that in the newspaper for public comment, just like we advertise a hearing. It's not a pre-post item, it's a hearing item. And we solicit public comment. Assuming there is no public comment, or public comment doesn't get result in any changes to the regulation, the next step is we take that final language and send it off to town council for him to review and then provide his feedback. After that happens, the next step is to send it off to the Board of Selectmen for their review, and then the final step is promulgation at a public meeting of the Conservation Commission. Again, it gets advertised in the paper, and once it's promulgated, it becomes final. So it's a bit of a process, but we don't have to go to town meeting for this, and that's really what town council's feedback part of this whole process is to make sure that the changes that are proposed are within the bylaw umbrella language and don't go outside that, and therefore wouldn't trigger a bylaw change to reflect the changes in the regulations. So is everyone pretty clear on that order of events?
Clear on the order of events, and I applaud you guys' effort. It's a lot of work, but you're making our job, much more clear cut, and I think it's the ultimate service to our purview as a conservation commission.
Well, I appreciate that. Yeah, we're happy to do it. It's always needed to look at regulations that reflect the current conditions, the current concerns, and obviously we know we've got a serious water quality problem here in town, so that's going to be addressed in looking at all of these regulations in the interest of improving water quality in the town. So yeah, take a look at go ahead.
Drew, I know a while back you sent out that document on habitat impacts from residential docks.
Yes.
Could you send that to everybody so they can get a look at it as well? Because I know we're moving into Regulation 27.
I did send that out as well. you should have all received that. Did
Yeah,
everybody?
I've read through that a couple of times. There's a lot of stuff in there that's kind of eye-opening.
Yes, yeah. Oh, I'm sorry, you're talking about the Division Marine Fisheries document, right,
Yes.
Paul? Yeah. Yeah, I'll send that out again. I'm not sure if I sent it out to everybody. I might have just sent it to the subcommittee members. But
I think
I will
you
send
did,
that out.
yeah. And, even the footnotes, if you follow up on some of the documents that they're using for their literature, there's a lot of good stuff there.
Yeah.
That we should be thinking about.
Yeah, I will send that out. I'll do that first thing tomorrow morning. But that we made a lot of changes, proposed edits to Regulation 27, docks, piers, and floats, based on this DMF document, and also taking a lot of language from town of Barnstable, which, looking at the different towns, has really, in my opinion, very thorough regulations based on very sound, research and science. So a lot of this proposed language was taken, and Falmouth too. Both towns have really detailed and stringent regulations when it comes to docks and piers. So it's been cherry-picked from both towns and DMF as well. So, and in the interest, because we know this is kind of a drawn-out procedure, and ultimately we'd like to get these promulgated sooner than later, I would ask that you, take the time to review sooner and provide your feedback at your earliest convenience, so we can get this process, keep the process moving.
Thanks.
Okay, just a couple of last items to wrap things up. Johns Pond milfoil, we're just, in a waiting situation until the springtime, where we're going to have the consultant go out and do a follow-up survey to see how effective the treatment was during when milfoil starts growing again. Hopefully there won't be any left, but chances are there might be some spot treatment, once the survey takes place in the spring. And as I mentioned in a previous meeting, milfoil is detected on Santuit Pond, so we plan to apply to submit a town meeting article for the spring town meeting for funding to address whatever remains in Johns Pond and to tackle Santuit Pond as well. And based on the estimates that were provided by the consultant and adding on, contingency costs, because in a situation like this, you really don't know the full extent until a survey is done. So you want to add in additional money to cover that. So I'm going to submit an article for town meeting to ask for roughly $36,000 to cover the cost of complete milfoil eradication from both water bodies. And I would hope that wouldn't be met with any resistance, because in my opinion, it's just necessary. And you really want to probably overshoot the estimate rather than underestimate in this type of situation. So also looking at, I'll have Caitlin update you on the chop take, but I'll skip over to the 2022 spring meeting, town meeting articles. A couple of other articles we're submitting is for NRCS grant funding match. NRCS is the Natural Resources Conservation Service. They've provided grant funding for a variety of projects here in Mashpee over the years. Most recently, the Santuit Pond Fish Ladder and some stormwater remediation at the end of Mashpee Neck Road. They've identified in site visits with us what we feel are the priority projects moving forward. One of them is Johns Pond Fish Ladder to improve fish passage and mostly address the eroding bank conditions surrounding that fish ladder, and the sediment loading. So a redesign of those areas around the fish ladder to address those issues, and also improvements to looking at the outlet of the Mashpee River as it comes out of Mashpee Pond. There's a lot of erosion on the side embankments. The river is widening in a lot of areas. It's losing depth. It's filling in with sand. So again, those are in the interest of improving fish passage, and then some other stormwater improvements again in areas that warrant impacts that are areas that are experiencing stormwater runoff that are impacting shellfish beds. So all of those projects combined for a 25% construction match from the town is roughly $178,000. But you're talking about $3 million worth of overall cost, and the town's share is less than $200,000. So kind of a no-brainer when it comes to that. And so again, I hope that article gets passed unanimously at Springtown meeting. And then last, and I'll just go back to the, and I apologize, I know this is taking a while. I appreciate your patience. This is, the commissioner may recall, Alex, you may not be, or Brian, I can't recall if you were
with the commission when this was brought up, but this is 3 Santuit Lane. This is a property that was surveyed not too long ago, I think, for a septic upgrade, and they realized that based on the surveying, a portion of the house and the foundation here on this side is actually encroaching onto this conservation land right here. It's Concom land on both sides of this lot. And so don't rely on the lines you see here on GIS. They're not accurate. The surveying revealed that there was encroachment. And as a result of that, I was contacted by attorney Brian Wall, who came up with the idea that the best way to go about addressing this situation is to have a portion of this existing lot swapped out and incorporated into this piece of conservation land, and they would be able to keep the equivalent square footage of encroachment here as a land swap. It's, you know, we don't like to get into land swap scenarios, but the only other option here is to require the removal of a portion of an existing house that has encroached onto conservation land. And I can only begin to imagine the legal ramifications of trying to pursue something like that. So it's just kind of seeking a path of least resistance, getting something that's already in a naturally vegetated state to be incorporated equal to the square footage of encroachment over on this side. So you've got Concom lands on both sides of this subject property. So that will be an article as well for town meeting. And I'll send that out to everybody tomorrow so you can see how it's going to be worded. You as a commission had voted to endorse this approach at a previous meeting. I think it was just last year when this was brought before you. And the understanding, you know, was when Brian Wall presented this to everybody, I think it was during a Zoom meeting, and you all took a vote of endorsement to advocate for this approach. I think it just makes sense. That's the best compliance path moving forward for this type of situation. So I'll hand it over to Caitlin for chop take.
Thank you. The draft bid documents for Phase 2 for the final design and permitting phase for the wetland restoration, they've just been reviewed by Town Council, so we will finalize those documents and have the town manager sign off on our contract amendment with the in lieu fee program, as well as post the new contract documents on combis to go out to bid for the second phase of, again, final design and permitting. Thank you.
That's it.
Thank you, Dave. All right.
I've got a quick question.
I know. Oh, okay.
Well, all right.
Caitlin, I know you sent out an email about coming in tomorrow to sign these documents in tonight's meeting, but are we not doing that because we're all set on this vote?
It has to be recorded first at the registry.
Okay.
Before it's valid. So all 7 of you
All got to come in.
need to sign these permits.
Or we can meet you outside or
yeah, it's
arrangement.
Donuts and coffee would lure in anybody, even Brad.
we will have coffee for you.
Just tell me what time. I'll be there.
We should bring them coffee.
Now you're talking.
I like that, Alex.
Wait a minute.
Yeah, the sooner the better, especially considering obviously the weather this weekend. I mean, I might hold things up early next week, so we'd really appreciate an effort for everyone to come in, and like Drew said, if not, we can accommodate by meeting you elsewhere.
Yeah, we can meet you up, you know, in the back parking lot or whatever. Whatever works for you guys is fine with us. By the next meeting, we'll have this certificate of vote, and we won't have to do this anymore.
Okay.
And just so everybody knows, that the governor extended this authorization, certificate of vote authorization, until April 1st. So he'll need to extend that if we want to keep doing it that way. So we'll see what happens.
Is April 1st really a good date for anything?
Not really. Who knows what's going to happen?
I have a quick question. I don't want to keep us on longer. It's so late. I just have a question. If I've been seeing like rumblings about wanting the town to take by eminent domain to put into conservation land the properties along Trout Pond. Has that come to you, Drew?
I haven't seen any official determination there. I know there are people working on it that would like to pursue that. And
I've been talking to the town planner, Evan Lehrer, to reform a land acquisition committee, which did exist in Mashpee a while back, and it just kind of disbanded. So I think it's still a legitimate committee. It doesn't need to be actually authorized by the selectmen, but we're pursuing that now to see if we can reconvene that committee and have kind of like a more formal path towards land acquisition instead of just, on the fly like we've been doing. The previous town planner really was, handled the bulk of these acquisitions, Tom Fudala. And the new town planner wants to, get a formal committee together to really, have a consistent approach to acquiring open space. So.
Sounds good. If you need a commissioner,
what's that?
to sit on that, I'm happy to.
Okay. Yeah, I'll definitely keep you all updated on that.
I've also heard a lot of citizen hard work has been being put into protecting trout ponds. I look forward to hearing maybe somebody before this committee with a presentation. That's definitely a worthwhile project we should fully endorse.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree.
Drew, are they still submitting a report, was it weekly or bi-weekly, on the repairs to the dam?
Not anymore because it's been repaired.
It's all done.
It's all done. The only thing that's remaining is the planting, which they obviously have to wait till springtime to do. But it's done. There might be some minor amendments just to see if, any slumping might occur based on, the finished product. But yeah, for all intents and purposes, it's done. And we had a site visit out there with the contractors, the consultant, and Mashpee Commons to take a look at it. They did a great job.
Great.
Yeah.
Great. Is there any other business any member has before the board? Hearing crickets, we'll entertain a motion for adjourn.
I'll second that. Oh, motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Charlie. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
All right. Voting. Charlie.
Yes.
Brad.
Yes.
Alex.
Yes.
Paul.
Yes.
Brian.
Yeah.
Tom.
Aye.
I vote aye as well. Motion carries. Thank you, everyone.
All right. Stay safe, everybody.
Thank you. Get those shovels out.
Bye.